Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, December 1st, 2024, coming at you live from Florida Media in Rockville Center. I got another great show coming up for you tonight. Ethan Sears of the New York Post will be joining us. My name is Sean Cuthbert. With me most of the time is Mr. Stefen Rosner. Stefen, how do you do?
I'm doing great. What do you think of this sweater thing here?
Solid, pal. Is that like a Thanksgiving gift or something?
Yeah, I got to thank my girlfriend Alyssa for it, but it's very comfortable. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was nice, man. You know, ate some turkey, ate some stuffing. It was delicious. Got to see some family. How about you?
Same. I'm a big fan of turkey.
Yeah, stuffing's my favorite.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay, I like mashed taters too.
Yeah.
Hope everybody else out there had a great, happy Thanksgiving. Before we dive into the show, I'm going to tell you about our wonderful sponsors, starting with Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd and unplug your game at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Also happen to be sponsored by Center Station Bar and Grill in Rockville Center. Catch every Isles game with great food and drinks at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center all season long. Also proud to be sponsored by Razor and Kniff, attorneys at law, ready to fight for you. Check them out at razorandkniff.com. That is RAISERANDKENNIFF.com for a free consultation. Also proud to be sponsored by our brand new sponsor, Tovi Hockey. Very excited to be involved with them. The innovative hockey technology company and creator of the Diamond Air Blade. Get 10% off at tovihockey.com with promo code HNINY10. You'll learn more about them later, but super stoked to have them on board. And with the pleasantries out of the way, let's get in to Experience Points presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe, where we make our points about the Islanders' experience in the last week. So, Stefen, busy week for the Islanders, and it wasn't great.
No.
It was not great. It ended on a decent note. We'll give them that, but 3 straight losses and then a win last night against Buffalo. This is a team that's 1-2-1 for the week and still trudging through. And bit by bit, as we get further along the line here, they're falling just a bit more out of the standings, out of the playoff picture here. Now they're 3 points out of a wild card spot. I believe last week they were 2 points out. So they're slowly fading away if they don't get their things in order here. So what did you see this week?
So the same old, especially against the Red Wings. They get swept by the Red Wings this year. Again, you have leads in the third period. You got to win these games. Thomas Hickey on the broadcast said, if you're nervous about going into a third with a lead, you're not going to be a playoff team.
Correct.
That's just the reality of the situation. And we saw it against Detroit. We saw it even against Boston, a tight game. They let it get away from a couple of mistakes, and then against the Capitals. But we'll dive in quickly into these games here.
All right, so Monday against Detroit, 4-2 loss. Lee, he continues his good play here. He's surprising us all, playing very well. He's at the top of the stat sheet now for the Islanders, just behind Kyle Palmieri. He's got 19 points on the season. He opens the game with a goal, and then you get Palmieri, gets the goal started by a nice play by Siplikov. Also, first point for George there on the assist. Yeah. So the game's looking all right. But like you said, same old story. This is another game where they give up the third period lead and ultimately not only lose, but lose in regulation.
Yeah, 2 goals they allowed in 2 minutes and 33 seconds in the third period. Simple mistakes in front. We've seen it happen time and time again, and it's about bearing down. And this team just seems, until yesterday, just struggles to get over that hump of we're going to win these games. And I think they're still playing as if they're playing not to lose. And when you play to not to lose, you're going to lose.
Yes. And it's so bizarre how, they've gone this long into the season, they still haven't figured it out. And there's a lot of veterans on this team. Right. That's what makes it even more puzzling.
Same talk last year about it.
Right. And it just makes you wonder just how, their mindset is going into third periods. And I know you guys have, you're in the locker room and you're in the press conference. You have to ask these guys the same questions over and over. How did it happen? Why is it happening this time? And it has to be getting tiring, not only for you guys, but for them as well. And you have to wonder just how they can alter that mindset. And then now we'll eventually fast forward to Saturday and talk about how they finally changed the narrative there. But the question is whether they can do that on a consistent basis, whether it's something that, can become the norm as opposed to a flash in the pan sort of thing.
Yeah, it's something that has to end. If they're going to make up ground in this wildcard race, they're still there. They're 3 points out. You got to build on these performances when you have the success. You can't, holding on a lead in the third period is great, but if the next game you blow it, that game didn't matter. So they have to find a way to end this habit or this trend, if you will.
Well, the trend continues as we move on to Wednesday versus the Boston Bruins. 6-3 loss there. That's a game where the Islanders showed some battle. They came back. They were down, and they tied the game late in the second period. There's a little bit of hope there, but now another third period collapse. Sure, they didn't have the lead going in, but they had the momentum. And they lost that immediately. They take an early penalty. Anders Lee goes to the box, and just almost as if every morning comes, you have a goal coming against the penalty kill at a very inopportune time, and they end up blowing the game, and they lose another one in regulation.
I mean, it was an absolute horrific start. Brad Marchand scores 2 goals off the bat before people are already sitting in their seat.
Right.
That's unacceptable. Just by everybody, whether it's coaching, getting them ready for the game, which I think that's just something that the players should be getting ready. They're NHL players. Caught napping on the first goal, caught napping on the second goal, puts you behind the 8 ball. It's great they showed resiliency to fight back. But if you don't go down 2-0 early, maybe you win the game and don't have to worry about fighting back. And then in the third period, just mistakes, failed power play chances. You had a failed power play late. So it's unacceptable when you're not ready to go from puck drop, and then that's why you have to play catch up.
Yeah, for sure. And then you fast forward to Friday, a little Black Friday matinee against the Capitals. They go into D.C. That's a 5-4 overtime loss. Seesaw game, but another game where they blow a 2-goal lead in the third period, and you get the positives. You get 2 goals for Holmstrom. You get 1 for McLean. Finally, he gets his first one on the season. And was that the game where Lee took the penalty early in the third? I think I mixed them up.
It's possible, yeah.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah, because he had the quote where he said that a couple of players in the Caps said that it wasn't anything, right? He had a hook like 5 seconds into the start of the period.
Off the face-off, most players are tying each other up. It was just, he shouldn't put his stick there, I guess, but I didn't love the call. That being said, when you take penalties or you put your stick in spots like that, they're going to call penalties, and then another moment where you want to see the PK bail them out.
Well, that's the big issue. I mean, that's what they've been missing for the majority of the season is the penalty kill hasn't been able to step up in these moments of need, right? And you talk about those small margins that the Islanders find themselves losing by. If it's not a mistake, if it's not a broken stick, if it's not a shot off the post, it's an element where they're somewhat in control in the sense that, sure, you take a penalty, you're down a man, but, you know, you guys got to kill some penalties in big moments here. And that's a big problem is just they haven't been able to do it. I mean, you take a third period penalty as an Islander and you're like, well, here comes a goal against.
And you have to put the goalies in there, too, with the PK. They're a large part of it. I'm not blaming them for it. But even in the big moments in the third when the Islanders are playing 5-on-5, where they need that, the goalie was great the entire game, but when they need that big save to keep them in it or hold a 1-goal lead, they haven't come up with it.
Right. So they ultimately end up going to overtime. They get the point, crossing their fingers for the second one, even after blowing the lead. And then you have a play where, in overtime, which also hasn't been very successful for the Islanders, you have Chychrun coming down, bearing down, and essentially 3 Islanders back. Now, sure, you might have had, a guy on the left, guy on the right, keeping their eye on the trailing Capitals here. But this is a scenario where Noah Dobson, he's dead center. He's right in front of Chychrun. This is a play where he should have stepped up and challenged the shooter. He did not. He backs in. He lets Chychrun take a shot. He probably uses Dobson as a screen there.
1,000%.
And it goes right through Sorokin. They lose the game, another lost point to a division rival who now finds themselves atop the Metro division because the Caps are just having an amazing season so far, even with Ovechkin hurt. But again, just another game where you have more points on the board that they could have taken. They have been well within reach of a number of points.
I'm going to share some stats.
I know you are. All season long where they're either tied, they're ahead, and they are just giving points away like it's Christmas.
Oh, that was good.
Thank you.
That was good.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, first off, Varlamov got screwed, if you will, on Dobson not stepping up in overtime. Clearly screwed him. Probably one he still wants to save, but if you can't see it, it's hard to stop. And then George, earlier in the game, was indecisive about pressuring the guy at the point.
Right.
Completely fooled Varley. And for people that are watching, they're going, oh, I hate that goal. He's got to stop those. But if you can't see the puck or you let the shooter have enough time to use the player as a screen, that's what you see in today's NHL. Even the elite goalies get beat like that. That's the one way to beat the really good goalies. And it stinks because as much as Varley takes part, I guess, in the blown third period lead, he still is playing solid enough, and those aren't the shots you want to lose by in overtime. You want to lose on an odd man rush or things like that. One-on-one, Dobson has to know, even if he just gets his stick out there, something to disrupt that. Even if he goes down to block it and the guy goes around him, you understand that more because he's being aggressive and not allowing the straight shot. It's unacceptable.
It's just concerning because that's kind of fundamental. When you know you have numbers coming back, and it's not like Chychrun's options were right right there where Noah was a little handcuffed here. This is a situation where he should have read the play, seen that he had support, that even if Chychrun beats him, he's got two guys flanking him that can step in and potentially knock the puck off a Chychrun stick, get a deflection, whatever it is. And all he does is back in and allow the shot. And once again, another situation where you have a noticeable error like this and it ends up in the back of the net. Where, again, like these margins where, it seems like any little slip up, any little mistake that they make, it ends up being crushing, another lost point in the standings.
And I think Dobson in regulation was the one that had the soft breakout pass that got picked off. That led to one of their goals. So
That's right.
It was tough.
That's
and
right.
Just quick stats here. Of the 16 losses the Islanders have this year, 12 are by a goal. That's not counting the empty netter to make it 2. The power play in those games is 2 for 37, 5.41%. We talked about it last week. As much as blowing third period leads is a major issue, the Islanders' power play came through in a big moment to make it a 2-goal. I know they blew a 2-goal lead anyway, but 2-goal lead or a 3-goal lead or just momentum to build on it for 5-on-5. After that game, Patrick Roy called the top power play unit, or his power play in general, awful, saying that the second unit was much better because they kept it simple. The top unit, even late in the game, they had a power play. They didn't even set up. So it's just Patrick Roy was pretty pissed off on Friday night.
Special teams are a very easy thing to point out here for why they're losing these games and dropping these points. I mean, forget about all the mistakes and stuff I'm talking about, but if they could just be mediocre in special teams, it would have made a world of difference. They probably have another 5-6 points in the standings at least.
A couple of goals.
Yeah.
I went back and looked at all the games where they didn't score on the power play, blew a third lead. You guys would love to see what the record would have been. And just a couple of power play goals in the third period.
Yeah.
If you get it in the first, you have no idea how it plays out. But just to make it a 2-goal lead instead of a 1, they probably win those games. And that's the frustrating part.
All right, well, let's touch on last night real quick, freshen our memories, and then we'll dole out some experience points. So last night, the Islanders, I wouldn't say redeemed the week, but at least ended the week on a positive note.
Ended the month on a positive note.
Ended the month also on a positive note. And what's funny is they ended on a winning record, 6-5-3 or 6-5-4, which is honestly surprising to me.
Yep.
I thought it was going to be a losing record. I saw it, and I was like, oh, okay, fair enough.
Well, technically it is a losing record.
Yes. But anyway, the 3-0 shutout win. They get a goal on the power play. They end up having a clean sheet in the PK. I think they were 2 for 2. They get an empty net goal for, which means they performed fairly well in the 6-on-5 against. So,
they did.
All the things that we've been kind of moaning about on this show, about what the Islanders haven't been able to do successfully, it all comes in one package last night against the Sabres. Let's keep in mind that it's the Sabres.
Who are higher in the standings, by the way. But let's continue.
And it's one game. And so now the question is, and I think we'll extend this question to Ethan because we're going to be bringing him on soon. Is it a flash in the pan here? Is it a mirage? Or is this something they can actually build off of?
Yeah, and I think Sorokin getting the shutout was important. First shutout since November 25th of last year, which he got in a 1-0 shootout loss to the Flyers. So it's been a while. He comes up with that big save on Cousins early in the third period on a shorthanded chance. 2-on-1, he makes an unreal save. Patrick Roy called that the turning point of the game, but he was fantastic the entire game. They went 11-7 yesterday. Scott Mayfield was banged up because he took a shot to the face on Friday. Pierre Engvall is the one, we'll definitely talk to Ethan about this. He gets healthy scratched because Watt didn't like the way he played. Mm-hmm. Pretty much said he's not too crazy about him if he's just going to stay to the outside. They run Matt Martin in back-to-back games. I thought Matt Martin played fine in the minutes he played. He had a goal that got waved off.
Right.
I thought Hudson Fasching these last 2 games has been great, but the biggest thing is in the final 6:41 of the third period with the 2-goal lead, which became a 3-goal lead, Patrick Roy went from 7 defensemen to 4, and Noah Dobson was not part of that. It was Hutton, Romanov, Pulak, and Mayfield, which tremendous job by Roy to not only hold players accountable, but hey, these are the guys going. I thought Hutton early on was in the mix. The Chalowski splitting time with him early in that game. Took the opportunity and ran with it. But Holmstrom, another 2-goal night for him, back-to-back multi-goal games for him. He's been great on the top line because Pajot's hurt. He missed his second straight game on Saturday.
So what do you got for experience points?
I'm going to give it to Fasching, to be honest. I'm going to give 200 points to Fasching. Didn't play a lot, but he was noticeable every moment. That's what he struggled with last year. The year before that, he was obviously, every time he was on the ice, you noticed him. And I thought last 2 games, he's played the minutes that was allowed him, and he's been effective in those minutes.
You went positive. I got to go negative in a losing week like this, especially losing games in similar fashion that we've seen. I'm going to have to go minus 587 just to the team overall for still failing to, win games, close games out in the third period. I mean, this is now an epidemic. We're well past the 20-game mark. We're into, the second quarter of the season here, and it's still an issue. Sure, last night was nice to see, but we have no idea if this is something that's going to remain. We'll keep an eye on it. Maybe it will be. We'll talk to Ethan about it. So that's it for Experience Points, presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe. Unplug your game and raise your experience at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play, food and drink, beer and wine, fun and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game, from old favorites to the hottest new releases. We have everything from strategic to easy party games. Get off your screens for a night your family will remember. Looking for meetups to join? Our Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, Lorcana, and organized play communities are welcoming for all. We also do parties and corporate events located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information. Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd. Unplug your game. And with that, we're going on the line, presented by Tovi Hockey.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at HockeyNightNY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan.
Attention all artists, storytellers, and creators of all kinds. It's time to make your content stand out above the rest. And Floored Media is the place to make your visions become a reality. Maybe you want to elevate your podcast and add some video, or turn that novel you wrote into an audiobook. Or maybe you just need the right space to produce your daily vlog. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, Floored Media has the professional facilities, exceptional staff, and intimate atmosphere to breathe life into your creative passions at every step of the process.
Did you have a nice break? Well, it's time to get back on the couch for more Islanders therapy on Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for On the Line, presented by Tovi Hockey, the innovative hockey technology company. And joining us on the line right now is none other than the great Ethan Sears from the New York Post. Ethan, how you been, bud?
I've been good. Thanks so much for having me, guys. How's everything with you?
Everything is great. Hope you had a nice turkey day. Let's dive in. We were just talking about last night's win. A lot of positives. You get the shutout. PK was perfect. You get the empty net goal 4. They hang on to a third period lead. Is this a mirage, a flash in the pan, or is this something the team can build off of?
Well, I think the way this season has gone, you kind of have to treat it as something that it's a mirage until it's not.
Fair.
Which, that's not to try to be a downer or anything. It's more to say, let's remember a week ago they played a pretty similar game against the Blues, right? Where they scored a power play goal, they hung on to a lead. It kind of felt a little like, all right, this is something they can build on, and they did and obviously they
did not
fell right back into the same thing.
Yeah.
So as encouraging as it was that they checked all of those boxes last night, there's a far larger sort of stack of evidence, in kind of in the other box of this team struggles on special teams, this team struggles to hold third period leads, this team struggles at 5-on-6, than there is in the box that they checked last night. So until you see them starting to do that with regularity and doing it kind of again and again, I think you kind of need to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, but certainly it's encouraging.
Speaking of mirages, Ethan, great word there. And Sean, Pierre Engvall scoring in 3 straight games a couple weeks ago. We all thought, okay, this is the turning point for maybe Pierre finally playing the way Waugh needed him to play. And you think just crashing the net, something that he could do consistently, find himself out of the lineup last night. Waugh citing that he didn't like the way he's played. He called it another wake-up call. And I just wanted to ask you, do you think this is a situation where Engvall does wake up? I mean, he starts the year in Bridgeport, or is this more of just this is what Pierre Engvall is going to be, and every couple of weeks he's going to have to be benched, and the Islanders are just going to have to live with that for the next 6 years?
Well, if he's got to be benched every couple of weeks, then they're not going to have to live with it for 6 years because they're going to buy him out. But to answer your question, I mean, yeah, this is not the first time, right? Lane Lambert benched Pierre Engvall multiple times. Patrick Waugh benched Pierre Engvall last year. And to be honest, if getting sent to the AHL to start the season, I mean, if that only sort of wakes you up for a few weeks, then it's sort of hard to believe that there's going to be a lasting impact from one healthy scratch. And, almost kind of similar to the last answer I gave. I mean, it's encouraging that he had that stretch, and he's a player who's very talented, and you can certainly, there's a reason that the Islanders haven't, already cut bait, right? Beyond just the length of the contract. It's that there's real talent in there. He's a great skater. He's 6'5". He's here for a reason. And as sort of as frustrating as it is to hear Patrick Waugh say that over and over again, it's true. Like, he's an extremely talented hockey player, but the inconsistent sort of physical effort from him is just not something that is going to fly. And this isn't new, we've seen it last year. We saw it with the last coach. So, I'm sure he'll put together another 2 good weeks at some point, but there's going to have to be more than that.
Yeah, no doubt, Ethan. I mean, to think that they're going to have to bench him every few weeks just to get him going, hit the reset button is a little much. But speaking of wake-up calls, though, just before you came on, Stefan and I were talking about the fact that the Islanders reduced their defenseman late in the game to kind of hang on to that lead. One of those names, Noah Dobson, being a guy who didn't touch the ice during that time. Is that a wake-up call for him? Is that kind of also putting him on a little bit of notice that Patrick was kind of saying, hey, I don't really trust you closing out these games? Because let's face it, we've seen a lot of games this season where he's been on the wrong end of a play that ends up going the wrong way for the Islanders.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we didn't get a chance to talk to Noah after the game. That's something I'm eager to ask him about the next time I see him, and eager to ask Patrick about the next time I see him, because you have to kind of think that, what you alluded to, kind of the number of times that he's been on kind of the wrong end of one of those plays probably did play into it. And I do think that there's a segment of the fan base that, for whatever reason, kind of likes to rag on Noah Dobson. So I want to be, I don't want to kind of get in that sort of headspace, but it is, we've all seen it this year that he hasn't quite looked the same on the defensive end. He hasn't quite contributed in the same way on the offensive end. And, I think this is, it's hard to believe that this wasn't a product of that. Let's put it that way.
I'm going to ask you about the power play. You were in the room in D.C. after they had a power play late, after Waugh kind of exploded on the power play units there. We asked Waugh yesterday if he thinks they got the message, but when you talked to the players on Friday night about the power play, just what were their thoughts? And I guess how much do you think, just keeping it simple, especially that top unit, really took to heart what that second unit did?
Yeah, I mean, Stefen, I think you've probably, asked all the same questions to the same guys and heard the same things that I have, which is, they feel like they need to keep it simple. They need to get pucks to the net. They can't try and be fancy with it, and so on and so forth. And, Patrick obviously sort of was hammering that message as well. But at the same time, it's also, I think it's hard to sort of focus on that when they, you can't say keep it simple, just get pucks to the net when they, can't even get the puck in the zone half the time. And it's probably not a coincidence that goal came after they won a face-off. How many times this year have we seen them, and they're a very good face-off team, but how many times this year have we seen them lose a face-off on the power play, and then it feels like the power play is basically over because they just can't get it past the blue line.
And Ethan, similar struggles on the penalty kill here. We were also talking about before you came on how not only is it in the basement of the league, but also it just seems like at the worst possible times when they take an ill-timed penalty, whether it's in the third period or not, but if they're up a goal, maybe by 2, they just seem to surrender a back-breaking goal on that penalty kill. So it just exacerbates the issue where not only is it struggling, but it's struggling at the worst possible times in games. And I'm sure you guys have been talking to Patrick Waugh and talking to the players in the locker room about what can they potentially do to turn this thing around. Because, I mean, we've seen a lot of this clientele, and yeah, sure, some of them are getting older, and maybe we're seeing some positive signs with Brock and Palmieri being out there. But what can this team do to turn around the penalty kill? Because as Stefen and I were talking about before, the special teams are just killing this team right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's really the penalty kill to me is just hard to believe because
yeah.
I remember last year kind of. I don't remember exactly where it ended up, but they had something like I want to say it was 10th or 11th worst penalty kill since the stat had been kept of, the percentage of power plays that you killed. And this year they're worse. And that's after they changed the coach who's in charge of it. And everybody last year kind of said, well, Doug Huda this, Doug Huda that. Well, maybe it wasn't the coach. I mean,
right.
And as to how you fix it, I don't know. I mean, I wish I had a good answer.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly last night was pretty encouraging. I thought that was probably the best game they played on the penalty kill all season. It's got to be up there.
It's not tough to find.
And I mean, they held them without a shot on, I think, one of the penalty kills. And when Horvat took that penalty in the third, you kind of started, okay, here they go. This is a third period penalty that they can't take. And that we all know how this goes. And they did a really nice job on that. So, maybe they can find some momentum off that. Maybe they've found something here to build on. But, I don't think anybody is jumping for joy because they killed 3 penalties, right? I mean, nor should they be.
I mean, I think one of the biggest problems is, one, they have to stop taking penalties early in the third period. And 2, people that take the penalties have to stop being the ones that are on the PK. Zizekas, Mayfield, Horvat, things like that.
But if I could just interject,
Sure.
The crazy thing is that don't they still lead the league in taking the least amount of
Probably.
penalties?
Yes.
So just think about
right.
if they actually did that on average, they'd be getting buried in these games.
All right, can I finish now?
Continue, yeah.
I want to ask you about Horvat. Obviously, he struggled mightily without Barzal and Duclair. Just how concerned are you with the fact that even when we saw this in his first game when Barzal got hurt, that he's getting the chances, but he's just not coming through? I mean, there's high-grade scoring chances that are just going by the board.
I think so. I would say there's sort of 2 prongs. In the bigger picture, in terms of am I concerned about Bo Horvat dropping off or suddenly not being the same player or anything like that? Not really. I think players go through stretches like this, and it tends to even out over a long period. And obviously, you would like to see him scoring, but I would imagine that's going to come at some point. But in the sort of smaller picture of they have a lot of guys hurt, Bo Horvat's kind of one of few consistent scorers they have who are still in the lineup, and they need him to be stepping up right now. Yeah, of course you're concerned because they're losing games and they need to kind of be treading water here. And that's something that they're struggling to do. And we don't really know how long it's going to be until Matt Barzal and Anthony Duclair get back. But, it's completely conceivable that could be Christmas, New Year, who knows? So if this is sort of related to that, then yeah, it's an issue because they can't really wait around for another month for Bo Horvat to start scoring, even if at the end of the year he finishes with whatever it is, 25 goals, 30 goals, and you say, okay, he, ended up having a fine year.
So, Ethan, last one from me here. if this team continues to tread water, as you said, the way that they are right now, like they have a decent week coming up, a busy week, but winnable games here coming up this week. And if they continue the, win 1, lose 2, or even win 2, lose 2, whatever it is, do you see Lou trying to salvage this season with some kind of move to keep them in the playoff mix? Or do you think he just kind of sits back and waits for those guys to get healthy and hope that's the change that kind of brings this team back in? Because, the season's going to get late quick if they can't turn this around and start, maybe winning 3 out of 4 in a week, 2 out of 3 in a week, because they haven't been able to do that. Do you see Lou trying to save the season with whether it's drastic or not, but just something to shake this team up, or are they just going to ride it out and see what happens?
The thing about that, I would say, is that I know that everybody's sort of having a lot of discussions about, like, the Rangers in particular putting guys on the market, but it's very early in the calendar for sort of big time trades to be happening.
Right.
The NHL it's a league that operates out of pressure points, whether that's trades, whether that's contracts, whether it's anything. So I certainly think that Lou is not going to sort of give up on the season unless it's really over, like unless his hand is forced. And I could see him looking to add kind of as long as that is not the case. But whether that opportunity is actually there, I mean, I just mentioned the Rangers. I don't think the Rangers are going to, trade Chris Kreider to the Islanders. That doesn't seem like a very realistic scenario to me.
Probably not.
And so, if something like that were to be available, do I think he would look for it? Yeah, I do. But I think it's important to keep in mind, it's really rare to see a trade like that happen in December, happen in January. Horvat happened at the end of January, kind of, I think it was right as the All-Star break was starting. And that was considered to be the Islanders jump the market, right? For a guy who everybody had known was available since pretty much September of that year, right? When JT Miller signed his extension. So, do I think he'll look for it? Yeah. Do I think he'll find something like this month? Probably not. I mean, never say never, but history would say probably not.
Last one for me here. Go back to the word mirage one more time for the hat trick. Simon Holmstrom.
Your favorite word now.
So yeah, I'm going to use it now and everything. Simon Holmstrom, back-to-back multi-goal games, gets elevated to the top line because of Pajot being a late scratch in DC. You think this is the real deal where Holmstrom finally has the confidence, starting the season at the top, going down to the bottom, moving back up, that he can actually be an offensive weapon for this team going forward? Or is it more of he's just taking the opportunity given to him? When everyone's healthy, he'll go back to the bottom six role and he'll bring some offense, but not like we're seeing?
Probably somewhere in between. We've heard pretty much since he's been called up about how good of a shot he has and how much they sort of like his offensive potential, and he just has to shoot more. So I think, some of this, and I'm thinking specifically of the first goal he scored on Friday, is a little bit of a product of that. That was, that shot he beat Thompson clean with was kind of like, oh, okay, this is what everybody was talking about. And to me, if this keeps up to some extent, obviously he's not going to score 2 goals every game. The thing that it does is, when these guys get healthy, it gives you more combinations that you can work with, right? And it lets you say, okay, well, can they try, maybe they want to try a Barzal, Pajot, Duclair line and keep this trio, this Lee, Horvat, Holmstrom trio that seems to be working pretty well. I guess not for Horvat, but they've obviously they've obviously played well in the last couple of games.
Right.
Maybe you want to keep that intact. It gives you more options. So I think that's probably the biggest potential longer term ramification of this. But obviously that comes with the caveat of he's got to keep it up, and this line has to keep it up.
Well, Ethan, always great chatting with you. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on your Sunday night. We'll be talking to you soon, and enjoy the rest of that Sunday night.
Thanks so much. You too.
You got it.
Yep.
All right, folks, that was On the Line, presented by Tovi Hockey, the innovative hockey technology company. And now, Stefen's going to tell you a little more about Tovi Hockey.
Tovi Hockey, the innovative hockey technology company, is the creator of the 100% solid carbon fiber Diamond Air blade, the only other NHL-approved blade technology. With superior feel and increased swing speed due to its perforated design, unparalleled control thanks to the micro-grip blade texture, greater durability courtesy of its patented aerodynamic cross-beam construction, and unparalleled shooting accuracy thanks to its large sweet spot, Tovi Hockey is changing the game by making the next-gen stick of tomorrow available today. Go to tovihockey.com to check out their great selection of sticks, gear, and apparel, and use promo code HNINY10 for 10% off your order. Tovi Hockey. Stronger, faster, superior.
Stefen, well done.
I'm good to go now, right?
Well done. Not bad. You know how to read.
I know
Great
to
stuff.
read. It's crazy.
But more importantly, super stoked to be partnered up with Tovi Hockey. Really excited to get one of those sticks in my hands, man. They look awesome. And the fact that they're the only other approved blade by the league is pretty awesome. I saw some pictures with Ovechkin actually practicing with one. I don't think he's used one in a game, but looks like they're definitely building up their rep throughout the league. And I love the fact that they're basically unbreakable. Right. They're not snapping like the other twigs you see out there. You spend $200-$300 on a stick, and you play for a week or two, and it's already snapping. So yes, big ups to Tovi Hockey. Appreciate their support here, and really excited to be jumping on board with them. So folks, hope you're enjoying the show here live here at Hockey Night New York. We're going to take one more break, and when we come back, it's time for What's on Tap.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is Hockey Night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan. Thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The train rolls on right in to Center Station, who are presenting the wonderful What's on Tap segment, and another busy week, as we alluded to earlier, for the New York Islanders, but also, as I said, winnable games here. Winnable games.
Every game's winnable.
In theory, yes.
And losable.
But the competition, maybe save for one game, not so crazy. So let's start off Tuesday the 3rd. The Islanders go up into Montreal. 7 p.m. game there. I know what you're smiling about. So again, this is a team that is beatable for the Islanders. They struggled with them earlier in the year. They did get that 9-inning shootout win, sure. But can the Islanders close out a game in regulation against the Habs? I mean, come on.
I don't know. Last time they did it, that was the Pierre Engvall fiasco when Patrick Roy made his return to Montreal. Tie game late. Engvall leaves the zone early, turns it over. They score. That was that. Fasching also got hurt in that game. Besides that, it was nice. No, I mean, it was not good. And I think Montreal's a team that's wants to make the playoffs this year. They've lost their last two. They just lost to the Boston Bruins. They did their centennial celebration today. They're entering this game with 2 losses last 2 games. Not playing great, and for sure a beatable team, and you have to find a way to build. Ethan made a great point. We talked about the Islanders against the Blues, holding a third-period lead, only to blow a lead against Detroit.
Right.
And erase the good stuff they did.
Yes.
After arguably one of their best third period, I think, of the year in terms of breaking out, being smart. Sorokin's best shutdown third period of the year. Mm-hmm. You can't go into Montreal and lose this game. Even if it's coming from behind to go to overtime, of course you'll take a point. But if you have a lead, especially early in this game, you have to find a way to build, because doing the salsa means no playoffs.
Let's see some momentum here. Now, are you and Ethan going to be struggling for some real estate there in the press conference with Wah being up in Montreal again?
I will not be in Montreal.
Oh, never mind then. Well, Ethan and Andrew.
Well, we'll see, because the way the Islanders do it, it's kind of like he went last year and Wah said, I'm not talking about it at all. That being said,
right.
they're not going to have a morning skate probably at all. So the media will be right before the game. Walt probably doesn't want to talk about being back in Montreal either. It already happened. That being said, there will be an entourage.
They love him up there.
There'll be an entourage of French-speaking people where we don't understand what they're saying, but we know for a fact that the quotes are much better in French.
Hey, speak for yourself. No,
French?
no, I don't.
Oh, okay.
All right, moving on. Thursday versus Seattle, 7:30. Islanders are back home at UBS Arena. Now, this is one of those games earlier on the calendar where they had a lead, they blew it, and they lost to the Kraken. Can they redeem themselves? Because they couldn't against the Wings.
Yeah, just don't have goalie interference happen. No,
Right.
Being serious, in that game where they lost, they allowed a tying goal in the third and lost in regulation. Which those are the unacceptable losses. You can kind of live with blowing it and getting a point at least. When you lose in regulation, I mean, that's much, much worse in my opinion.
Yes.
But they had chances to build on their lead and even win the game after blowing it. They didn't. They put it in the ref's hands. Ultimately didn't pan out. They pulled the goalie, didn't work out either. Had a power play, right? Or they had a penalty kill after that. This is a Seattle team that's still without Jordan Eberle.
Right.
Still struggling to play well. Decord's, every game I watch Decord in, he looks really, really good. And then there's some points where you're thinking, yeesh. Like that can't happen or that can't go in. Islanders have to find a way. This is not an unbeatable Kraken team. They're on their home turf, not in Seattle. Get the job done.
All right, so here comes the tough one, quote unquote. The 7th versus the Carolina Hurricanes, 5 p.m. start.
Not an afternoon game. It doesn't count as afternoon.
It is technically an evening game. Yes. On the West Coast, it's an afternoon game. If you're watching in California, it's an afternoon game. But more seriously, look, we know the story between the Islanders and the Hurricanes here. This is a team that have had the Islanders' number. This is a team who's once again towards the top of the Metropolitan Division. They're looking good despite the changes over the summer. What can the Islanders do here to win this game?
One, goaltending, they have to get pucks on goal early. Kachukov, I think he's returning earlier this week. He had a concussion, so they've been running Spencer Martin and insert name here. In the meantime, they just always have. Goaltending is the one reason why the Hurricanes haven't won a cup, in my humble opinion. Anderson's out a while with knee surgery. So even if Kachukov's back, this is a team where they love to possess the puck and throw pucks on goal. That is Brind'Amour's bread and butter, and maybe their shooting percentage isn't high, but you never know. There's never a bad shot, right? Islanders got to play that game. They want to focus on playing their game, but early on against these goalies, get pucks on net, cause chaos, and also you got to lock down Marty Niches. I think he has 37 points in 24 games. This is a guy that was rumored to be on the move, didn't want to be there, and now he's playing like an absolute superstar. I think he's towards the top of the NHL leaderboard. So lockdown on those guys. Jack Rosovich, former Ranger who did nothing with the Rangers, has been unreal this year for them. So yeah, this is a tough Carolina Hurricanes team. Again, they're beatable. I think they've lost their last 2 games as well. We'll see what their record is coming into that game on Saturday evening, but this is the time to strike this Hurricanes team.
This is the time. We'll see how that works out. And then Sunday, second of a back-to-back, they go into Ottawa, another 5 p.m. start, another beatable team here for the Islanders, another team that's struggling to kind of crack that playoff race and be a serious contender for the playoffs. We'll see what kind of game they bring. Obviously, not an easy out here, but a team that the Islanders, if they are the team we thought they were going to be heading into the season, should beat the Senators.
I think this is more about the Islanders on a second of a back-to-back than Ottawa in general. We just saw, Waugh made a joke. He goes, you always tell us our record on the second end of back-to-backs, but we got one. That's what he said last night.
Yeah.
And the Islanders proved they can win second. Not only can they win second of back-to-backs, they didn't play shorthanded, but they went unorthodox way to
excellent
do that.
In back-to-backs under Trotz in his earlier years.
Well, they did a lot of good things under Trotz.
That's true. Yeah.
But I just think for Ottawa, they're obviously a team that's fragile right now. Olmark has not been good. Forsberg struggled. They get their top 3 guys, Batherson, Tkachuk, and Stützle have been great. But after that, it's just a bunch of depth players not really pulling their weight enough. And this is another team where the Islanders are every time they play a team that's fighting for a wild card, this is a 4-point game. So depending on how this week goes, this could be a way for the Islanders to salvage the week. This could the Islanders put an exclamation point, hoping that it is an exclamation point for this team.
Well, speaking of how the week goes, how do you think it's going to go?
I think they beat Montreal.
Okay.
I think they beat Seattle.
Hey.
I think
3-game winning streak.
I think the Hurricanes goes to overtime because why not? Why not?
Okay.
I do think they drop that, and I think they come back with an exceptional performance against Ottawa, turning things around, and hopefully this week, maybe they'll have some positive news on the injury front.
So you're telling me 3-0-1?
No, that's what I'm telling you. I have no idea, but we'll see.
Wow. I didn't think you could beat me on the positivity train here on this show, but not bad.
I look at this game yesterday, different than the Blues game just because the way the heart. I didn't want to knock their effort ever in these games, but the heart, the blocks late, the clears, the perfect clearing attempts. Everybody's in sync. The way Holmstrom played, who Waugh put out. Now remember, in all these blown leads, Waugh kind of been just going to the same people late. And yesterday was the first time where a guy like Dobson wasn't out there. He shortened his bench, put the guys out that, hey, you were playing well in this game. Grant Hutton's out there late, right? This is not what Waz was doing early in the year. So for that and the way Sorokin played and the way the PK played, I just feel confident that that wasn't a mirage. Maybe they'll blow leads as the season goes on, but I think they find a way to build on that. And the more games that you build the confidence holding leads and winning, I think they'll snap out of it. But it's got to be 2 or 3 of these games, not just one.
No, hey, I like it. I'm going to play it a little more conservative. I'm going to go 2-1-1. I think they'll take Montreal and Seattle, drop in regulation to Carolina, and maybe eke out a point against Ottawa in overtime or a shootout. My last question on this before we move on is, do they give up a third period lead this week, win or lose?
Probably.
I think that's a safe bet. That's a safe bet. Go to DraftKings.
I'm not a math guy, but statistically that the odds are in the favor of that definitely happening. But when you mention, to me, there's no weak. When you don't beat the bad teams, you can't look at these weaker teams, and you weren't saying that at all. But people do. I got a question how do you think Dallas will do against these weaker opponents?
Yeah.
When you're 14th in your conference,
the theoretically weaker teams.
But like you mentioned, if you want to make a statement, and you're not going to beat the really, really good teams, you got to find a way to win these games. And as I said, closer to getting people back healthy, getting that big win. This is the time in their schedule before the new year to really take advantage. They have 6 games this month, right? Or 6 home games this month, excuse me. Playing a little better in front of their home crowd after last night. Build on that.
Build on that. All right, that will do it for What's on Tap, presented by Center Station Bar and Grill. Catch great food, drinks and aisles games, and live events at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center. Now we're going to talk about some heroes. So triumphant stuff.
I know, it's great.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Really gets me going.
Okay, I think I'm going to buck tradition here, and I'm going to start. I'm going to go first with my hero, and I'm going to tell you guys about Captain Anders Lee. That's right, 6 points on the week, 3-3-6. Big in the loss versus the Caps, but he helped them get a point, and also big last night in the win against Buffalo, getting points, assisting on Holmstrom's goals there, and just being a guy reborn this season, right? Nobody saw this coming. I think that's safe to say. I certainly didn't. You certainly didn't. And Anders Lee has kind of rediscovered his game as we thought his contract was going to be a little harder to look at in the latter years here. But he's a guy who's leading a team who's struggling, but he's right up there towards the top of the stat sheet, like I said before. And it's really encouraging. And you know what? I got to give him some credit.
It is crazy to think. I don't want to talk about the ACL being the reason that everything's fixed now, but you have to think for some of these guys, it could take a couple of years for that knee. I think Butch Goring talked about it, or even Hickey was talking about how, he's maybe just 110% with that knee now, or learning. People said that it wasn't hurting when he played, or I think I'm talking to Lee about it. It's just different, the way you have to move.
I don't recall. Was there any talk either during the summer or maybe camp where did he change anything up this past summer in terms of training regimen? I know, he commented on how Waugh was skating them and he was happy about that. But did he do anything different this summer to kind of make himself look a little younger out there on the ice?
I don't know about look a little younger, but he went to Bo Horvat's trainer, who I'm blanking on, who coached
Adam Oates.
Adam Oates.
Right,
so
that's right.
I talked to Bo about this. And I said, was this something that you approached him? He goes, yeah, I would do drills at the end of practice every day, and Lee liked them. I was like, hey, just try for this. Let's see what happens.
Sure.
So Lee took part in it. I got to drop a sneak peek here for my El Monsters column tomorrow. But Lee did make another change that is paying off tremendously. I've been holding it for when he plays well and the team wins, and it just kept happening where he played well, the team didn't win, or the team played well and he didn't score. Dropping it tomorrow, but he did change something very important to the game of hockey, and it's clearly paying dividends. But before we go to my hero, you talk about Anders Lee on the ice. Let's talk about Anders Lee off the ice. This is a guy maybe under Lane that was always the cliches, things like that. But this is an Island team that struggled to hold leads. Fans, I think, immediately would say, stop putting yourself in positions. Like if you're up 1 goal, make it 2, make it 3. Or just find ways to put teams away early. But Anders Lee, after the game yesterday, spoke to us, and I asked him about playing with this lead and how you can overcome that. And this is what he had to say.
All right.
The mentality. Yeah, you know what? It's exactly what we wanted tonight. We wanted to have we wanted to have to go face it. We wanted to go right after it. We did exactly what we wanted to do. Go get a 2-goal lead and let's finish this off. Let's go right after this thing. We had a great morning this morning, and I thought it was the best thing that could have happened tonight. was being up 2, forcing us to go do it, and it's exactly what we did.
And that is the mentality this team has not played with. They've said, here we go again, rather than let's eat this and win this and building it, because we've asked these guys so many times, and you mentioned it before, there's no answer. We spoke to Hudson Fasching, who I'll have that story tomorrow. He gave about a 5 to 10 minute speech about their conversations in the room about it. And together, what can we do? Why can't we figure this out? How do we get over this? And like a guy like Fasching, who's just been watching, he offered a unique perspective in that. But you talk to all these guys and they just don't know. And they also said you can't practice building that. It just has to happen in the games, which is why Tuesday is so important, because great, you did it on Saturday, building it. So I think Lee's mentality not the first time this year he's thought that, but with us, it's like, bring it on. You know, we're the Islanders that we want to play that team that's going to do that. We're going to be gritty. We're going to find ways to win. That quote, when he said that, I thought that was like a Trotz player. And I think that's huge.
All right. Tell us about your hero.
My hero is Simon Holmstrom. Back-to-back, first ever multi-goal game of his career on Friday. Follows it up with another multi-goal game. This is a guy that found out, I mean, they're all NHL players. They've played with each other before. But find out after warm-ups that he was going to play on the top line with Bo Horvat and Anders Lee. And like I said, the confidence of him going down to the third line. You saw with the puck on his stick that's where he really is at his best, where he's winning puck battles in the corners, positionally along the boards, making stick plays. When you're on a line with Barzal, you're not the guy having the puck on your stick. And I think he built the confidence in his offensive game down there. He also hasn't let it impact his defensive game, which is why he's here in the first place. So he has a great game yesterday and Friday, but also intercepts a pass with the empty net, fires puck all the way down into the empty net goal. Showed tremendous growth in his confidence, his play. And I asked Anders Lee after the game about what he's seen from Holmstrom that was different maybe a couple of weeks ago.
Smart player. He sees like I've been saying, you know this too, he's such a smart player. He sees the ice and understands what Bo and I are trying to do and where we want him when he doesn't have the puck. And I said this earlier with these guys, he's winning a lot of battles, so he keeps the puck alive for us, even if it's just to chip it back behind the net. That gives us another go at it, and those are big battles and stuff that Pedro was doing too, and we try to do for each other, and it keeps the shift going. It gives us another chance to attack a spot, and he's been great with that.
It's the little things in life with Simon Holmstrom. You saw him even set up plays that didn't work out, quick plays to break into the zone, things like that. Stuff that you need. It won't go on the score sheet unless it's a secondary assist, but it's important. One more quote from Holmstrom. This is what he said after the game yesterday, courtesy of the Islanders. We have a lot of guys out right now, so someone's got to step up. And getting the chance, I've got to take it. And again, one of those quotes where if you're a fan, like, let's go. You need those guys. It's one thing to just step up in one game, but for a young player like this to get an opportunity last second, make the most of it to the pretty much the highest level you possibly can. They need this. He's not going to score 2 goals every game, but having that confidence that he could shoot. He mentioned that shot against Thompson. Yes, it's glove is on the other hand, so that's a blocker shot. Maybe a goalie would glove it. That's an absolute snipe. And we saw it last year when he did that semi-toe drag against Carolina. He has an elite level shot. He shows it more than a guy like Wahlstrom does, which I don't think people a couple years ago would have said that he would be a better offensive finisher than Wahlstrom. Right. And if Holmstrom finds a way to become this, even if he's a bottom 6 guy scoring 20 goals a year, so important, especially when there's money involved and cap and he's signed to a contract. Like, you need the guys that you're not paying a lot of money to produce like the guys that are. And I think that's a luxury that not a lot of teams have. But for a guy like Holmstrom, a guy that's a defensive specialist, PKer, if he could find a way to be a 20, 25 goal scorer every year, does so much for this Islanders team.
Yeah, I think it's encouraging to see, but he's one of those guys, I've commented on it, throughout this season, where he's gotten his chances and he has been taking shots, but a lot of them they're just not missing the mark, whether they're hitting the goalie's chest or they're not hitting the net at all. So maybe if you can just hone in on his accuracy a little bit, or home in. Yeah, either one. But then maybe you see some more goal output from him, and then he looks like that 20-goal scorer. So and we have to remember, he's outside Isaiah George, he's the youngest guy in the squad, at least the youngest forward, right? So, we'll see if he can build on it, and that's that. So that'll do it for the heroes of the week, Anders Lee and Simon Holmstrom. Now I'm going to tell you about Isles Fix. Islanders Country, get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at ilesfix.substack.com. snakeden.com. And now it's time to crawl right in to the snake den.
Slither.
Welcome to
Stop
the Snake
correcting
Den with Jake the Snake Redonis.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for the Snake Den with Jake the Snake Redonis. Jake, how we doing? How was your Thanksgiving?
My Thanksgiving was great. I'm pretty sure I'm still full from it. But that
Okay.
happens every year, right? You eat way too much.
Now,
but-
what is your favorite part of the Thanksgiving meal? I know, tough question.
So are you asking me like food-wise?
Yes.
Okay. I'm between mashed potatoes and mac and cheese. Also like stuffing.
Okay.
Not really that big of a turkey guy myself.
I
but
get it. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's really about the sides
Okay.
And the
sides.
football.
and the
Fair
football and the
All
good time
right, they
spent with
do.
family.
That's last place. Okay, very nice. You got your priorities in order. So, what's the take, buddy? What do we got going? What do we got going on here? I see some props.
Well, so Jay actually gave me the shirt that he created.
It's a very nice shirt.
A Floored Media shirt. And if
Yeah.
you recognize this, I'm just old enough to remember Blockbuster. Had one right down the road for me.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd bring some DVDs that I like.
I love it, pal. That's where I used to go to get my video games, man. Dad used to take me. I'd get Mega Man 2,
Nice.
Mega Man 3 for Nintendo. Man, those were the days. But yeah, Blockbuster. Did you know that they owned the Florida Panthers to start?
I actually did not know that.
They
no.
did. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, if memory serves. You can fact check me, but I'm pretty sure that's true. So, Jake, you got a take for us or what?
Yeah, I do. So, going into this year with a full camp under Wah, we expected a little bit more, I think. I mean, granted, there are injuries, but it's been a pretty rough start to begin.
Yeah.
I think that one thing that we can take out of this Wah regimen, it would be him holding players accountable. You see a guy like Pierre Engvall get health bombed.
Health-bombed.
Yeah. And we've seen it happen to Engvall multiple times by Wah. And if he doesn't like the way that you're playing, he's not scared to take you out of the lineup. I'm hoping that this will ignite Pierre again. I know it's happened in the past where Engvall would get scratched, he'd come back in, he'd play a little bit more of a fire.
Right, sure.
Another thing that he did was he sat Dobson, I think 6 minutes left.
6:41 was the last.
Right.
6:41,
yeah.
and you're talking about Noah Dobson, who is supposed to be the Islanders' best defenseman. He's in a contract year.
Right.
Everyone's talking about 8x8 going into this year. I'm actually curious if he's hurting himself in that department as well. But Wad taking
Not helping himself.
No, Wad taking a guy like Dobson out in critical minutes in a game is something I don't think we would have ever seen from Lane Lambert. So I mean, it's
Fair.
nice as a fan to be able to have a coach who, if he doesn't like the way you're playing,
Yeah.
you're not going to play.
I think that's a great take. Now, can one of you guys please explain to me what health bombed means?
Healthy scratched.
That's what health bombed is?
Yep.
Yeah,
This is the first time
I
I've
should have
ever
just
heard
said
that.
healthy scratch. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, you know what? We're all learning something here tonight,
Yeah.
for the old fogies like me. So that's great. Health bomb. That's when you're
bomb.
healthy scratched.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything on Jake's take, Stefan? Or?
No, I thought it was a great point about holding players accountable, and even in the media too, which we appreciate so much because we're kind of like the liaison between the team and the fans. Is when the power play on Friday, he could have said, "Oh, like credit to the Capitals PK for he went after his top unit." Not only did he go after his top unit, calling them awful, but then went on to say how better the second unit was. And obviously, the players probably see or hear what Wah said. He probably tells them exactly how he feels. And that's so important because you saw yesterday on the power play goal for Lee. Win a faceoff by Horvat. Palmieri gets the puck, fires it at Lee's stick. Lee's in the right spot, goes in. The expression, KISS, keep it simple, stupid, right?
Yes.
It's obviously not ideal for that to happen on every power play, but when the power play has been good, even with Aho when he was at the point, just simple shots, traffic and run screens, and I think it's a wake-up call when Wah explodes because even with Wahlstrom, the other day, I asked, Wahlstrom was off the power play, and I asked Wah what he's seen, and Wah went off, but passive-aggressively was like, we need, everyone tells me Wahlstrom's a finisher, and I haven't seen it yet. He had turnovers, and then guess what? Last couple of games, Waz loved the way he played. So sometimes you want to berate a player to get a message across, but when a message gets across, like with the power play being better yesterday, with Wahlstrom being better in certain areas, like you need that. And I think
Absolutely.
a coach that's going to be, even if it's said behind closed door and we don't hear it, like that probably happens all the time.
Sure.
But when it's out there and it's a story, well, the same way where he bashed Bolduc. Like Bolduc didn't have a chance to redeem himself.
Right.
But it told the fans that maybe fans think they're crazy watching a certain player doing the same thing, going, why is Wah not said anything? Or why is a
Right,
coach?
right.
We see a lot of times, and don't get me wrong, coaches that defend their players, Like, I appreciate that as well. Like, that's loyalty, that's understanding, but certain players need a kick in the you-know-what publicly. And it lit a fire so far with the power play, lit a fire with Wallstrom a little bit. Engvall, we'll see if it lights a fire. And we know him going down did, certainly, in certain things. So I think you really appreciate that as a fan when a coach is not nervous to speak what's on his mind.
No doubt about it. Well, that'll do it for the Snake Den. Jake, great job with the take, pal.
Thank you.
And I hope you can find an open Blockbuster video, because I think there's only one left, and that's in like Alaska.
Or a DVD player to even play these.
That's true, too. That's true, too. All right, well, that'll do it for the Snake Den. Now it's time to go to Questions Brewing with our pals.
It's time for Questions Brewing. So go ahead. Ask us a question.
Our pals.
Edzo and Jay.
Yeah.
Fellas, how are you?
Jay, you want to start tonight? How are you?
Give a thumbs up. He's good.
Did you guys have a nice Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I did. I also got a new hat, courtesy of our friends.
Oh, yeah,
Amy and
that's
Tim
right. At the
from the
Islander
game.
game. That's
Shout
right.
out to them for
it's looking
a great time. Yeah,
All right.
right?
How's the questions looking?
We're inquisitive tonight.
Inquisitive once
Wow.
again.
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to start off with Loho, son of God.
Oh, okay.
Should we
Yes.
bow? Or
I might take my hat off for this one, I guess.
Okay.
At the very least. Yes, if the Isles are just outside of the playoffs come March, do you see Nelson and Palmieri being dealt?
Well, the operative words being just outside, I think the answer to that is no. I think they stay, because I think if they are, we've said it too on the program previously, if they're within reach, realistic, reasonable reach of a playoff spot, I think Lou is going to double down and hope that this team gets in. So unless they are matter-of-factly out of it, I don't think those guys go anywhere.
Next up from Dale S. on YouTube, timeline on Duclair and Pelech coming back.
So they're both skating on their own, probably for the last week and a half or so. I'm hoping, and I don't know, that maybe this week they join the team for practice. That's obviously the next step for both. I think you probably see Pelech back first, because he broke his jaw, so he's going to wear a whole bubble. I think it's just about taking contact. Duclair, if it's a groin injury, which we think it is, you're going to have to ramp that up slowly, because you could rush him back, which the Islanders aren't going to do, and then you pull it again. So I think we'll see Pelech back first, but you could see maybe Duclair and Pelech maybe in a non-contact as soon as tomorrow. I don't know, but the fact that they've been skating on their own now for probably a week and a half or so, maybe even longer, they just told us it was a week and a half. I think they'll be back really soon. Barzal, to our knowledge, has not skated yet. So he's going to be out longer than the 4 to 6 week timeline. We know Mike Riley is going to be out several months. He's focused on just being able to live his life. Then hockey. But yeah, I think it's possible we see Pelech and Duclair back at practice, whether it's in a non-contact or regular jersey, by the end of this week.
Okay.
Next up, by State of Survival, if we are well out of the playoffs. What?
Well, we know where this is going.
Go ahead.
If we are well, if we are well out of the playoffs by the trade deadline, do we stand pat?
No. No, I think it's the opposite. I think if they're well out and Lou sees it's very clear they're not getting back in, then I think you are at a very critical point in the Islanders franchise where they have to cut ties from what you would consider parts of the core of this team in Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri, especially with the season that Palmieri's having, right? But look, you know how old they are. You know how much they're going to make, and you know how many years you're probably going to have to give them to retain them.
Right.
So unless they're giving the Islanders a reason to retain them, and they wouldn't be in this case, right?
If they're all completely out of it.
Yeah, you got to cut them loose, and I love both of those players. Like I'd love to, especially Nelson. I'd love to see him be a career Islander and retire an Islander. But you know, if things go really south, you know that this team doesn't have the assets. They don't have the draft prospects. They really got to, rebuild the cupboard, even whether it's to build for the future and have kids come up through the draft and come up through the system, or to use them as trade capital to kind of retool this team, which I think the Islanders will be more inclined to do. But yeah, you got to unload at the very least Nelson and Palmieri, since their contracts are expiring. You look at Pajot for sure, since his face-offs have been so well. You've been harping on that a lot. He's definitely been a more productive player this season. And, beyond that, maybe you look up and down the list. Do you go into Pelech Pullock? Do you look elsewhere?
I was thinking Pelech. I think at some point you look at Varley. I know
Varley.
He has been adamant that he does not want to leave. They got the modified no trade.
None of them want to leave.
For sure. But a playoff team that needs a goalie.
Right.
He's got the playoff experience. You got to think about this stuff if they're completely out of it. But also, what's made it easier? You mentioned Pazzo's faceoff numbers being a lot better. You couldn't have asked for better UFA seasons for Nelson and Palmieri, where their value, for example, if they didn't trade them last year and their value, and they struggled to start this year, like the rest of the team, like these are the two guys that are leading this group.
Yeah.
If they struggled, you went from potential first round pick last year to now maybe a second, and the age as well. Now it's first round picks for both of these guys. I think depending on who you trade them to, if you're trade them to a playoff team, it's probably going to be a late first round pick. That being said, with how wide open these wild card spots are, if the Islanders are farther out than maybe, let's say for example, Buffalo, Ottawa, those teams are hovering, or even in the West, some of the team, St. Louis is hovering, you might be better to trade to those playoff bubble teams because they're going to finish, if they don't make it, they're finishing lower in the standings, better first round pick.
Highest bidder.
Yeah.
Highest bidder. Yeah, listen, if they're out of it and it's a seller's market, and with the way those guys are playing, you have to capitalize on that.
Palmieri's been a great playoff performer.
For sure.
Brock Nelson's, he could be a third-line center on a really deep playoff team.
Absolutely.
Next up from Enzab09, he asks, where's the leadership? At some point, a true leader shakes up his team and says, knock off all the mistakes. Messier, Potvin would stand up and lead. Are you telling me this team wouldn't respond to a guy like that?
I like this question a lot. You want to take it first?
I always preface this when we talk about Anders Lee or the captaincy about what's being said, and we have to. Everyone does it. Is you're only seeing what the Islanders or we want to, or the quotes that are just there. You're not seeing. We don't go in the locker room right after a loss. We go in the locker room about 10 minutes after they get into the locker room, where for a fact there's a team meeting going on, probably without Watt in there, probably Lee and the veterans speaking it. Yes. Is there leadership need to be done for this to all stop collectively? Sure, but I have a hard time trying to blame that it's on Lee and it's on the leaders in the room when it's not those players making the same mistakes, things like that. And it's a great question because I think someone has to step up, and I think Lee making the quotes he made, Lee getting the goals and the way he's played this year, like this is probably by far the last couple of years leading on and off the ice as much as they've struggled. Other people have to carry their weight, but I don't think they have to go and get on. They have Bohorvat, who was a leader in Vancouver wearing the C. They have guys that were leaders. So yes, you could blame the leadership. I don't know if another leader, adding another leader to this group, fixes the problems that are collectively with this entire group.
But the truth is, we don't know whether a guy like Lee or anybody else in the roster for that matter is taking that act, whatever it is, right? Like, just because it's not shared in the media, in the locker room, at a press conference, doesn't mean it's not happening behind closed doors. And I know Ranger fans like to look back, it was a year or 2 years ago with Trouba, he slammed his stick on the boards. It was a little early in the season.
Throwing the tablet, iPad.
Sure. But these are things that they kind of look at it, turn the season around, right? This is the moment where, they got their act together and they started winning hockey games. And, do the Islanders need Noah Dobson to snap his stick over the crossbar after a loss for the team to turn around? Probably not. Would it even account for that? Probably not. I mean, these are moments where, did they make a difference? I don't know. I think really, anything that is happening with leadership for any team, Islanders or not, that's happening behind closed doors anyway, and we're not privy to it.
Yeah, and you mentioned, too, you made a great point about the Rangers, is all of that was on camera.
Exactly.
The Islanders, they could break sticks every time they enter the locker room after these losses or punch each other in the face.
Right.
And honestly, not to say that it's right or wrong, but I think Lou would have a really big problem if Dobson, after a mistake, is breaking a stick, or Sorokin loses his mind on the ice after his team leaves a guy wide open at the back door. I mean, I was watching the Columbus game today, and the Columbus allowed a backdoor tap in, and Merzlikins is screaming at his own players. Like, sure, does that fire up a team? Yeah, but optics are bad.
And didn't a player slam his stick in the tunnel and his coach? Who was that again? Was that Colorado?
Yes,
it was. It was
Colorado. I forgot who snapped it, but it hit Bednar in the head or whatever.
Not great.
Not ideal.
Not great. Yeah.
Next up from DTMR, does Simon get consideration for Team Sweden?
I don't think. I mean, without looking at the depth chart, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think
I'll be honest. I don't know their depth chart off the top of my head, but
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No.
That being said, going forward, if he finds a way to have a really good year this year, but he's going to have to earn that. I don't know.
I read a preseason kind of mock roster for all the teams, and his name was nowhere near it. Yeah.
Next up from Thomas Panic. Multiple choice. Where will Wahlstrom start next season? A, NHL, B, AHL, or C, Europe?
I'm going to say C, Europe. Oh, Stefan agrees if you're watching.
See?
This is the weird part, and I want to touch on this quickly, is I was going through, early in the year, it's like, okay, trade Wall. If Wahlstrom's not going to be an Islander and not live up to the expectations, what are good teams for him to go to? I looked at San Jose, looked at Anaheim, looked at Chicago, looked at their depth charts recently. He would not have a spot on Anaheim. San Jose, with all the young guys they have, I looked at the roster. Is he better than X? Is he no spot on San Jose?
Yeah.
Look at Chicago with all the veterans they have. Didn't see a spot there. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next up from Mr. Tom Boyle, he says, I am terrible with math. If Engvall is placed on unconditional waivers, how will the numbers work out?
Well, okay, so unconditional waivers means that
It's usually it's for a buyout, essentially, yeah.
So how would the numbers look? It's 2/3 of the contract over double the years. So he makes $3 million a year. So $2 million
6 left, so that's 12 years.
for $2 million a year, correct?
I think so.
2/3 of 3 is 2.
Yes, that's accurate. Yes.
And then
I
it
thought
would
it
be-
was half, not 2/3.
Pretty sure it's 2/3. I could
Okay.
be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's that. So that's how the math would look on that. If they send him to the minors, 1.15 gets buried, so 1.8 and change remains on it. I don't. That's the thing, is I don't know when everyone's healthy. Now, if he's going to be a healthy scratch going forward, then you might as well just buy him out now and do it now.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to waive people to become cap compliant. So you're only keeping Engvall if he's helping you win. We asked Wah about Martin and limiting his minutes yesterday, and he said, everything we're doing is for us to win hockey games, which I didn't take that as much as Matt Martin limiting his minutes and back-to-backs. I looked at it as, all right, so you really do think that Engvall not being lineup gives you the best chance to win the way he's played.
Sure.
So if that's the case, try to trade Engvall. You probably have to retain money. Buying him out and paying $2 million a year is not a lot, especially the cap's about to go up an exorbitant amount of money. So if they're going to do that, if he's not going to be part of this team, just cut the bait now. But unconditional waivers would be for the purpose of contract termination, which I'm pretty sure the buyout penalty, but then he's off the books for the rest of the year outside of that.
Okay.
Next up from aisle 72, he asks, what do you attribute to the awful PK? Do they just not have good PK-type players?
Well, I asked that very question to Ethan earlier, and to me, it's still mind-boggling in the sense that I just don't think the personnel that they have in the team is bad enough to be as bad as they are on the PK. But I mean, so at that point, what else do you point to, right? It's either strategies or it's confidence, and it's just, how they perform on the ice. And, I mean, look, there's a little bit of an encouraging sign this week. As I talked to before, they got Nelson and Palmieri up there. They looked good. Maybe that's what they have to do. Maybe they have to lean on their bigger players even more than they already are, and maybe that can turn things around. But, I mean, overall, it just seems to be a circumstance where maybe I would like to see them aggressive. I always like an aggressive PK. I don't like it when you're sitting back in the square and you're waiting for the play come to you. I mean, the fact that they already have an extra player on the ice, I think you have to chase. I think you have to be aggressive on the puck. Now, obviously, there's a fine line between that and getting out of position, losing your man. But I'd like to see the team be a little more aggressive out there and try to just force pucks out of the zone. Easier said than done. But, I mean, they've tried everything else.
PKers have to stop taking penalties. That's where I fall in that. You put people in, they still have a job to do, and people practice the penalty kill that aren't top PKers. But when Sezik's in the box as much as he is, or when Mayfield's in the box, or when Horvat's in the box, you're putting people that aren't usually killing penalties in the spots. They have to get the job done, but also just those guys have to be more weary with their sticks. Like, hey, I'm a PKer. I can't be the one in the box when we have to kill a big penalty.
I think that's a decent enough point, but when you already know that this is a team who takes the least amount of penalties already in the league, like, it's hard to even be choosy about that. Like, just you got to kill the damn penalties because you're going to take them. Whether you deserve them or not, you're going to take them, and you got to find a way to kill them.
Yeah, failed clears is a big issue, and also, you said it, guarding the two guys the other day, 3 guys went to 1 guy. It just can't. That's why they're failing there.
MJ Beckman asks, does Brock make the 4 Nations roster?
Definitely got a better chance than Simon Holmstrom.
Or Noah Dobson, for that matter.
Fair.
I don't think Brock will make it. That being said, I do think he's probably the most underrated U.S.-born player in this league, and he just doesn't get his roses, if you will. He's had a great year. I don't think he'll make it. I think U.S. is pretty stacked, but he's done everything he possibly can to get an opportunity there.
If he did, it would be as an extra forward. Yeah.
Another one from Loho, Son of God. If we do stand pat, where's a realistic number to re-sign both Nelson and Palmieri?
Yeah, great question there. I think Palm's coming off a $5 million a year annual deal. Now, $5 million then is not $5 million now. It's not $5 million next year. I think bringing them both back on 3 to 4 year deals at between 5 and 6 is completely team friendly. That being said, I think unless Nelson was going to Minnesota back home, he's definitely going to take a team friendly deal to stay on the island given their situation. And I think Palms loves it here.
Yeah.
Like they all do. So I think you could see both guys take team friendly deals, maybe even the same exact deal.
If I remember correctly, now the ages might have been a little differently, but Jordan Eberle's last contract with the Islanders, I think, was lateral exactly money-wise. I think they extended his contract by the same amount he was making.
That he was in Edmonton?
And no, as an Islander.
With an Islander, yeah.
I think he was making $5 or $6 million, and I think the last contract he got before he was scooped up, in the waiver draft, the expansion draft, was around $5-6 million, and they just extended it by a few years. I don't have the numbers in front of me exactly how many years, but it wasn't exorbitant. But I think it was kind of a combination of, hey, we know you're in your 30s, hey, hometown discount, that sort of thing. And he didn't get a raise, is my point. I just forget if it was $5 or $6 million. So maybe you see something like that.
I think I misspoke. I think Nelson's 6, Palmieri's 5. So they could do exactly that.
Yeah.
Again, $6 million and $5 million right now when the cap goes up, it's not as bad especially with how they produce. If they were free agents, even their age, because age is just a number until you play to that age.
And I think 3 years is the sweet spot. You might have to give them 4, but I think 3 years if you have to.
Yeah, Tom said Ebbs was placed on ITIR.
LTIR, yeah.
LTIR, sorry.
He's out. He had a bad injury that he needed surgery for. So, not good.
Nzeb09 asks, who is safe from trade? I say no one is safe. Maybe Sorokin. Everyone else is on the block.
False. Barzal's safe. Duclair is safe. They're not trading Siplikov. I don't think Holmstrom's going anywhere. Dobson's not going anywhere. Sorokin's not going anywhere. George is not going anywhere. I don't think Pulak's going anywhere. Don't think Pellick's going anywhere. So actually, most of this team is probably safe. Maybe Pellick if they're really falling out of it, but most of these players are safe, and they're not going to also trade everybody.
I think that list is longer than mine would have been. But then you have to factor in the movement clauses and the trade clauses.
Yeah, that's more than it, because a lot of them it's complicated.
Right. So you could say, I'm willing to get rid of this guy, that guy, and the other guy. But if they have kind of a prohibitive clause in their contract, maybe you look at that and say, okay, well, it's not going to be realistic to get rid of this guy. So maybe not necessarily these are guys that you wouldn't be willing to deal, but just quite literally they may not be able to deal those guys. Okay.
Tom Boyle with a 2-part question. Do you see the Islanders making a trade before the Christmas freeze? And have you heard that Toronto has interest in Nelson?
No to both for me.
No, I don't see them making a trade because I do believe their mindset is when we're healthy, we're going to be a lot better. So let's just get healthy. And number 2, you're going to hear a lot of teams from fake outlets or even real outlets saying that everyone's in on one of these guys. Brock Nelson's and Kyle Palmieri. I wrote about Palmieri, and same thing with Nelson. Every team that's in a playoff spot or above a playoff spot is going to call the Islanders about both of them.
Yeah, who would not be interested in Brock Nelson?
At this time that Lou's answering the phone, or if he's answering the phone, it's a quick comment of being like, touch base with me in another couple of months. Mm-hmm. But teams would be stupid to not call and inquire about both of those guys if you're a playoff team. Simple.
Ed, if you have one more quick one, we can do it.
Yeah, well, this one's pretty quick. Boxing fan 5055 asks, can you guys take Jacob Trouba?
No.
I personally can't, and I don't think the Islanders will either.
Yeah. But that'll probably do it.
Okay, that'll do it for Questions Bruin. Thank you very much for the participation and all the great questions. And now we get to wrap it up. But before we do, I'm going to remind you all about our brand new Patreon. Check out patreon.com/HockeyNightNY for exclusive content featuring Q&As, columns, videos, behind the scenes, merchant partner discounts, and even an invitation to hang with us here at Floored Media while we air the show live. And Stefen actually just put out a piece himself, a little Rosner's Wrap, right?
I did.
Rosner's Roundup, I should say.
Rosner's Roundup. We talked about on the show last time about what is a successful season, and you had said, getting past the first round. And I thought, well, if they trade guys and help the team going forward, that's also successful. So I dove more into that, continued the conversation, if you will.
That's right. So once again, go to patreon.com/HockeyNightNY and subscribe. It is a great way to support what we do here. So please check it out. And with that, we can wrap this up. So huge thanks to Ethan Sears of the New York Post for joining us with a great spot. And also a huge thanks to our sponsors, starting with Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Find out how to unplug your game at mainstboardgamecafe.com. Also a huge thanks to Center Station Bar and Grill. Head on down to 279A Sunrise Highway for Isles games, live music, karaoke, comedy shows, and more in Rockville Center. Also a huge thanks to Razor and Kniff, attorneys at law. Nobody likes going to court, but if you have to, call 212-LAW-1500 for a free consultation. And also, once again, a big thanks to our brand new sponsor, Tovi Hockey, creators of the Diamond Air Blade. Go to tovihockey.com to check out their great products and use promo code HNINY10 for 10% off. So with all that out of the way, remember to rate, review, subscribe if you haven't already. And now Stefan's going to tell you where you can find him on social media and the internets.
Yeah, you can find me at Stefan_Rosner on X. Just look up my name the same way on Blue Sky. I don't remember the ending to that. NHL.com, the Hockey News, the Elmonters, my Patreon, my Substack.
Our Patreon.
And again, Anders Lee going to drop that story tomorrow about one big thing he changed this summer, which I think has paid dividends.
There you go. There you go. You can follow myself on the Twitter at Shawnee Hockey and the Blue Sky Place if you want to check us out there. You can also follow the show at Hockey Night NY on all social media platforms, including Blue Sky. And you can check out the website, hockeynightny.com, for columns, articles, everything on the New York Islanders. Jake, where can we find you, buddy?
You find me on X at Jake Radonis, Radonis.
There you go.
And at your local Blockbuster.
And at yes.
Yes.
And at your
trying to bang down the doors to rent. What's your top movie there? What are you pulling out of the Blockbuster?
Oh man, that's such a loaded question.
It sure is. And I'm putting you on the spot.
I would go old school.
Old school. Goonies. How about Goonies? Because that's the first thing that popped into my head. All right, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to Hockey Night in New York. Update on next week. There will not be a show on Sunday. However, we might try to squeeze something in somewhere, somehow. But either way, we'll keep you posted. For Stefan, for Jake, for Edzo, for Jay, we've been Hockey Night in New York. I've been Sean Cuthbert. We'll see you next time.